Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to this week's Kabbalat Shabbat. And it gives me great pleasure to invite Morris to give us about Torah.
Thank you. One of the problems of sort of preparing things in advance is you don't know what's happening between preparing things and going along. And when I was in Israel, I prepared this talk, and the rabbi mentioned various bits that were in the talk last week. So, as I say, last week the rabbi spoke briefly about different sizes of the letters in the Torah, and I'd like to take this opportunity to develop this theme. Normally, when you start something, a list, a book, a chapter, it starts with the first ordinal number. For instance, you don't start a book at chapter 5, although I understand some people read the last chapter first, but that spoils the plot. As we know, each letter of the Hebrew alphabet also represents a number. Aleph equals 1, Bet 2, Gimel 3, and so on. So why does the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, begin with a Bet, the second letter of the Aleph base, instead of the first letter, Aleph? The Baal HaTurin, Rabbi Jacob ben Asher of the 1300s, teaches that the Torah wanted to start on a pleasant note. As Proverbs 3:17 state, its ways are ways of pleasantness, its paths are paths of peace. The letter Bet it can be associated with Baracha, whereas the first letter of the alphabet, Aleph, can be associated with the word Arur, curse. Reading an English translation of the Torah, you'd never know about this custom of writing some letters larger or smaller than others. You'd only see this in a Hebrew text or a Torah scroll. Why then is Bet an extra large letter? There are three approaches to understanding the use of these variable-sized letters: letter interpretation, based on the meaning of the letter itself; magnification and diminution, the impact of the size of the letter and on the meaning of the word; addition or omission, treating a large letter as doubled or a small letter as omitted. Using the letter interpretation method, Rabbi Jacob ben Asher uses the meaning of the large Bet to interpret the first verse of the Torah. He reminds us that letter Bet has a numerical value of 2. The number 2 is associated with duality. But to what duality could the first verse of the Torah be referring? Perhaps of heaven and earth, or the physical world versus the spiritual world, as seen as opposed to the unseen. Bet is also the word used which means a house or a home. The temple is the Bet HaMidrash, the house of holiness. Thus, the large Bet at the beginning of Bereshit can also allude to the first and second temple, another example of duality, which represents Hashem dwelling amongst men. When the Torah is written by the scribes, there are 17 occasions in which a letter is either larger or smaller than the surrounding letters. Hebrew doesn't have uppercase or lowercase letters, and this is not just a scribological indulgence. Larger or smaller letters of the Torah scroll serve to call attention to specific verses, words, or concepts, often with interpretations rooted in midrashic tradition, mysticism, and to prevent textual errors. These special letters, which include the extra large Bet of Bereshit and the large Ayin and Dalet of the Shema prayer, provide a visual clue in the deeper meanings and are part of the sacred, unbroken chain of scribal traditions. The purpose of these extra letters can emphasize certain points or ensure that crucial words are read correctly. The size of a letter is often a visual clue for interpreting a word or a verse, adding layers of meaning beyond its literal text. The large Bet at the beginning of the Torah emphasizes the pleasant note on which the Torah begins. Again, her ways are ways of pleasantness. The large Vav in Leviticus signifies it as the middle letter of the entire Torah. The practice of using large and small letters is part of a strict tradition of copying Torah scrolls by scribes. This tradition is considered to have been passed down meticulously, with the possibility of dating back to the receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. To illustrate some of the deeper meanings behind these letters, just a few examples, with the understanding that each example really has multiple layers of meaning. The Aleph in the first word of Leviticus, Vayikra, is small. In contrast, we find the Aleph in the word Adam at the beginning of the book of Chronicles is large. The Hasidic masters explain that the small Aleph alludes to Moses' humility, even as Hashem called upon him to take an exalted role in human history. By contrast, the Aleph in Adam's name is written larger than usual, alluding to Adam's self-esteem as the acme of Hashem's creation. Although it's both necessary and good to be aware of one's positive qualities, Adam allowed his self-esteem to degenerate into conceit, and thus caused the ultimate downfall with the sin of the forbidden fruit. Moses rectified Adam's mistake. He recognized his greatness, but nevertheless remained humble. His humility was not self-delusional, but the result of a simple reasoning. I cannot take any credit for my gifts or accomplishments, he thought, since they're all Hashem given. After the episode of the spies returning from the land of Israel and giving bad report, Hashem was angered and wished to punish the nation. Moses implored Hashem to spare them, and before invoking Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy, he said, "Therefore I pray, let Hashem's forbearance be great, as you have declared, saying, the word Vayigal, be great, is written with an oversized yad, which has a numerical value of 10. Thus, the commentators explain that Moses was in fact saying to Hashem, the Jews may have tested you in the desert 10 times, but remember our righteous forefather was Abraham, whose faith you tested 10 trials, and he withstood them all. The Shema prayer is an affirmation of that Hashem is the only true existence. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Not only is there a biblical commandment to recite the Shema twice daily, but this has also become central to the climax of the final Nila prayer on Yom Kippur. It's traditionally the Jews' last words on earth. The last letters of the first and last words of the Shema are oversized letters. One explains that the larger letter Ayin, which is the numerical value of 70, alludes to the idea that all 70 nations should hear this message. The Dalet, with a numerical value of 4, represents the 4 directions of the world, alluding to the imperative that Hashem's oneness be revealed in all places. Another explanation is that together these letters make the word aid, witness, for which we testify to Hashem's oneness. Hashem, so to speak, testifies to our unique role in the world. The further explanation of the large Ayin and of Shema and the large Daled, Echad, in the Shema prayer are designed to prevent the Ayin from being confused with an Aleph and the Dalet with a Resh, which would change the meaning of the prayer from here to maybe or one to other. This is but a very small sampling of some of the explanations behind the anomalies based on the Torah, which there are countless examples of how every nuance of the Torah is perfect, rich with meaning, and deep beyond our understanding. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, Shkoch, Morris.
Shkoch.
It's always interesting to learn more about the hidden letters and why things are written as such in the Torah. So, Shkoch. And now it gives me pleasure to invite Robert to